Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner in Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner in Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner in Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner in Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Ralph Emerson from the Rising Star Baptist Church. Reverend Emerson also helps us as chair of the JPS board. We appreciate very much your work with that body.
Thank you. Just don't ask me any questions about that today.
We promise.
If we'll bow for a moment. And now, Father our God, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, that you found favor that we could all experience intake and outgo of our lives unto others. And Father, we just say to you now that we ask that you would just touch each of our commissioners and every staff person, that every movement and every thought is done for the betterment of our community. We thank you for every decision that will be made, not for self, but for this community. Thank you for bringing us together as a unit and unifying us as one body under thee. We thank you for all of your blessings. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I protect this flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Notice those were a little different. Those mayors were here last night. You never know what those guys were thinking. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have three announcements. The first two deal with the administrator section, item 8A, 1 and 2. Those items will be considered after closed session today. And then also under purchasing, item 8G1, which is a sale of recycled paper. There's a new court communication in your folder this morning as it relates to that particular item. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well, this is, wait a minute, before I get to that, we have our minutes of our regularly scheduled meeting of January.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes almost unanimously. Now, this is our first Tuesday of the month, so we have an opportunity to recognize some of our employees for their years of service. Before I do that, though, I also want to just mention that this Friday is Go Red Day for the American Heart Association. And no, it's not for Arkansas, Jack. I saw you kind of perk up back there. It doesn't have anything to do with Arkansas. But it does have to do with recognition of women's health. One of the things that, if I can find what my office put together for me so aptly and I've lost so appropriately, some facts that I was surprised by. Cardiovascular disease caused 1 in 3 women's deaths each year. So 1 out of every 3 women that pass away as a result of heart disease, which is approximately 1 woman per minute. You know, I think we typically think of heart disease as being that of a man. Since 1984, more women than men have died each year from heart disease and stroke. And what this effort really does is it encourages women to get involved in the Go Red for Women movement, and to, as a result of doing that, to live healthier lives. And so I would just encourage everyone to remember that Friday is Go Red Day for American Heart Association for Women, and encourage you to maybe look and get more information off of the internet for that. And with that, I'm going to move into our employee recognition, which is the monthly opportunity for me to show how I cannot pronounce many of your names. I've got some good ones. There's some excellent opportunities. And as Commissioner Fickus mentioned, the number one will be the first one. 5-year folks, for you, especially for you rookies, you 5-year folks, we ask you to, as I call your name or what sounds like your name, to please stand and will remain standing until we've completed all of that particular year, and then we'll recognize you and then we'll ask you to sit down and we'll start to the next group. You know alphabetically where you should be. So again, if I butcher it so bad that you don't even recognize that and you're kind of thinking that sounds like where I ought to be in the alphabet, stand up.
He gets most of their first names right.
Most of them. But there's always some opportunities here. Our 5-year employee, our first one is Maria Bryson De La Torre. And see, ooh, did I get it right? Kind of close. Yeah, it's kind of like that commercial in Super Bowl, sort of. Public Health. Thank you very much. Bernardo Castro Jr., Sheriff's Office. Margaret Cullen. I tell you, you guys are just killing me this morning. Palazzo, Public Health. Was it after they helped? Yeah, we got that right. Meechan Duncan Helm, Juvenile Services. Michon. I'm 4 for 4 here so far. Orville George, Sheriff's Office. Come on, Orville, please be here. Jane Kamani, Sheriff's Office. Okay, how do you pronounce the last name? Kamani. Well, I was pretty close on that one. I feel pretty good about this next one. Richard King.
That is correct.
I'm with you, Richard. Jessica Ligaz. See, I'm going to delegate this responsibility to one of my commissioners here. County Clerk's Office. Brandon Monty, Sheriff's Office. Connie Reeves, Budget and Risk Management. So I get the name right and then I mess up with the department. Sarah Ritchie, Public Health. Perry Skaggs, Sheriff's Department. I'm on a roll here. April Tarpley, Sheriff's Office. Angelica Taylor, and she's not even here. 432nd District Court. Alfred Trossman, Sheriff's Office. Miriam Victorin, Public Health. She was just telling me she stood up. She wasn't telling me I pronounced it right. I know that. Pedro Victorian. Now this is similar, and they're sitting next to one another. I think there may be a little bit more there. Public Health. Peggy West, Sheriff's Office. And Courtney Young, Veterans Court Program. These are our Thank you all very much. You can be seated. Now, don't even get any better. Now for our 10-year employees. Teresa Ashwander, District Clerk's Office. Cynthia Dillard Neese, Eats. Is she here, Domestic Relations Office? Okay. Christy Lovely. You're really having fun with this today, aren't you?
Shoot once. You're really good.
Christy Lovelace, 360th District Court. Carolyn Range, Information Technologies. Mark Schraub. I didn't get that one right.
No hard.
I think he's going to have a fit down here. We're going to have to bring public health up here to revive him in a minute. He's laughing so hard. Shobe. There you go. Alice Steely, counter.
County Auditor's Office.
It's not usually been quite this bad. It's just there's something in the water today, I guess.
You'll get this next one.
Was Alice here?
Yes.
Okay.
Johnny Taylor, Facilities Management. I'm going to call some of these mothers and thank them after some of these. Jeffrey Tyndall, Sheriff's Office. Ryan Werstein, Public Health. Ismail Williams, Sheriff's Office. Judy Williams, Public Health. Johnny Wright, Constable's Office, Precinct 8. These are our 10-year employees. Let's give them a hand. Now for our 15-year employees. Valerie Baston, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Lori Burks, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Sharon, you working those folks so hard they can't even come to...
That's it.
Larry Christian, Precinct 4 Operations. Eugenia Cundiff, Sheriff's Office. Alan Marconi, Juvenile Services. Frederick Miller, Sheriff's Office. Deborah Radiford, Public Health. Nathaniel Robertson, Sheriff's Office. Sherry Stevens, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Richard Turner, Juvenile Services. Carolyn Van Winkle, Medical Examiner's Office. And those are our 15-year employees. Let's thank them. Now for our 20-year employees. Reggie Davis, Juvenile Services. Charles Gibson, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Rhonda McDonald, County Clerk's Office. Michael Smith, Medical Examiner's Office. Ellen Smith, 323rd District Court. Tina Valdez, Human Resources. And Christopher Williamson, Constable's Office, Precinct 7. These are our 20-year employees. Let's give them a hand. Now for our 25-year employees. First, and I don't think she was going to be able to make it down here this morning, Sandy Carter from the District Clerk's Office, 25 years.
Waller wouldn't let him.
You know, he knows. Yeah, there he is. I can say he's not going to miss an opportunity to be back there for the cookies, so it kind of surprises me that. That's implying that you were entitled to one in the first place. Anyway, when you see Sandy or you talk with Sandy today, congratulate her on her 25 years of service to the county. Next is Wes Curry with the Sheriff's Courts, 25 years. Started off in the Sheriff's Office at the Belknap facility, then went to the Correction Center as intake officer, has been through several of the departments, spent some time as an extradition officer, bringing folks back to Fort Worth, is now served for Judge Curry, I guess, over in the judicial area for a while, and is now back in the extradition for warrants division for the past 3 years. When I talked with him 5 years ago, and I was talking with him about memorable moments, and I've recalled this before and have heard it many times before, people say it's the first time I went into that jail and that door slammed behind me, and I realized I'm in here, and I'm in here with them. And so that's something that I'm sure is a very sobering effect. When I asked him what he liked most, again, as in many times, it was the people that he's had a chance to work with, that it was an honorable and respectful job, and it was the steady pay as well as the benefits. He said, I absolutely love what I'm doing. And he said, you know, when I started this job, when I applied based upon an ad in the paper. Wes, we're very glad you did, and we're very glad of the 25 years you've given to Tarrant County. Thank you. Ernie Lopez, 25 years, Juvenile Services. Where's Ernie? Thank you for being here. You brought your own little cheering group there, I see. Has been in many different positions, is now kind of working. For many of y'all may not know that several years ago, we entered into a project called JCMS with Dallas, Bexar County, and then as that has matured through the process, the state also joined in. And Ernie was kind of our representative and manager for working that program and making sure that it got to completion, and is now working with some of the local police departments in training them and in getting them onto the program. When I asked him memorable moments, he mentioned that he started with Tarrant County, I guess, about 6 months out of college. And I think early on he was running a lot of errands. And one day, this was, you remember a long time ago, we had the little parking lot right across the street where the Family Life Center is now. And, you know, we had the little placards up there telling everybody where to park and who was supposed to be parking there. Well, he got in a hurry one day and decided he was only going to be in and out for a few minutes, and so he parked in the judge's place. Wasn't a good idea. Came back out, and I guess there was a little card in the windshield that said, please come to the judge's office. Well, in the meantime, the judge had decided, for those of y'all who actually recall it, he just decided he'd pull up on the sidewalk until he could find this person and get them to move. Well, in the meantime, somebody called the tow company on that, and the tow company thought, well, there's this car parked on the sidewalk, and so that's obviously got to be the car. I'm certainly not going to tow away the judge's car. And as all this is transpiring, Ernie is sitting in the chair in the judge's office waiting for the judge to get back, probably from his car being towed, when he gets a call from Carrie Cockrell, the executive, the director out there, who says to him, get out of that office, don't talk to the judge, don't talk to anybody, get out of there, and I will intercede on your behalf. Had that not happened, we wouldn't be celebrating today. Ernie being with us for 25, in fact, he might not have made it 25 days at that point in time. So he told me that story when we talked the last time, but it's one of those things those are one of those stories you just got to keep bringing up and reminding everybody of that. He said, I have absolutely loved the opportunity to work in the juvenile area, but also to work on our JCMS project. He said, I'm very proud of the time. He said, really, I grew up with the county. He said, I've got a 13 and 11-year-old who are keeping me very busy right now in addition to everything that's going on. I saw Carrie and Lynn yesterday, and they both said to say hello and congratulations again on your 25 years with the county.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to let you know, and the rest of the folks here, that my decision-making has much improved over the years.
We're glad to hear that, Ernie. Kerry did relate that when he talked with Judge English, he said this guy he's a great guy. He's going to be a great worker. He says, well, he's obviously got no problems with parking wherever he needs to park to get the job done. So he said you probably ought to keep him. Next is Skip Skiffington with the sheriff's office, 25 years. He's one of these who came and left a little bit and then came back, and so he's really been with us a little bit longer, but we have I always give HR a hard time about the number of years because they subtract stuff off when you leave for your little vacancies there. But he started in the sheriff's department in the Belknap area. He's really been all over the sheriff's department. Made sergeant, actually, I guess when you were training when you were a class coordinator in training, moved over to the patrol for 3 years. In the last 5 years, he spent 3 years in patrol, but he's now back in training. He said, I've loved the opportunity to be able to see and experience the various departments that I've had a chance to work in. He said the consistency of the job, the benefits, the people he's had a chance to work with have all been things that he's really relished. I asked him kind of what was going on just in life in general. He said, I have a 16-year-old son who just started driving. And he said, it's a blessing and it's a challenge. Mm-hmm. I remember when my kids, especially when the first one turned 16, my wife gave me strict instructions about the fact that if I had any thoughts of restricting her from driving, that I better go ahead and clear my schedule for that period of time, because anything my daughter was supposed to do for her, I was going to get to do for her. It had a great deal of impact on my restricting any of my kids from driving it for the next year. Also has a 26-year-old boy and a 24-year-old girl who both live in the area. Skip, we really appreciate the time that you've given to Tarrant County. Thank you very much. Next is someone who we all know, Kathy Young. Kathy, stand up. 25 years with Commissioner Precinct 1's office. I guess you actually started off with Gerald. And then after a year, went to Precinct 1. Was initially the office administrator, went back to school, then became the community outreach coordinator, and now is the executive administrator over administration and the constituent services. She said, I absolutely, when I asked her what she liked to do most, she said, I like to be able to help and to work with people in making sure they get the services they need. And I think that, that's kind of the mission statement, I think, of so many of our employees, is they're not here for, what's in it for them or for the dollars. They're in it to make a difference in the lives of the people that they touch. And I certainly know that, Kathy, you have in many, many instances done that. She said that I love the people that I've had a chance to work with. She said, everybody, it's like a family up and down the line. She said there's times when stress, enters into things, but she says, I absolutely love to reach out and to help others. When I asked her about anything else, she said, it's been a great career that the county has offered her. She has 3 kids, 10 grandkids, all who live in the area, and it keeps her very, very busy. Recently got married, and to the love of her life, they've known each other for over 20 years. And she said, I feel very, very blessed to have been able to work here and really feel like that God has had a hand in whatever has happened in her life in this particular area. Kathy, you have had a hand in affecting and influencing many people and helping many people. We appreciate that, and I know they do. Thank you very, very much. Y'all represent 645 years of service. We cannot thank you enough for everything you do day in and day out to serve the citizens of Tarrant County, those which some come just to pay bills, or some come in times in their lives when they're really down, and you help bring them up or help them to move to the next place. We appreciate that. We all appreciate it. We wish we could do more to thank you, but if you beat Wilder back there, we got cookies back in 504C.
Let Wilder go first. Let Wilder
He's gone.
go
He's
first.
on his way.
First, so nobody will be stepped on.
Yeah, just let him get in there first. So again, thank you all very much for your service to Tarrant County. See how much good it did? Court members, I guess we just do this periodically. We need to receive and file the employee recognition.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have one additional item. This is item number 3. We're requesting that the court consider the adoption of a legislative policy statement as relates to giving the county authority to contract with the Emergency Services District to provide legal counsel.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I know we talked a little bit about this as far as this gives us the authority, the DA's the authority to represent.
Yes, because after reviewing the state law, it has come to the attention of the district attorney that without this, we can't represent them.
Okay.
And they need representation badly.
Let me ask this question, and I was unclear of exactly what authority we had over the Emergency Services District. I knew we appointed the representatives, and I guess that's all the authority we do. We don't
We
approve.
assign the fire marshal to coordinate with
Okay,
them.
but the Emergency Service District is responsible for setting the tax rate.
No.
We approve the tax rate, and we approve their budget.
And that was, okay, if that's the,
It's
and I know it's what we've done.
It's basically the same as the hospital district
So they
responsibility.
formulate it and we approve it?
Yes.
And here's my question.
Or
'cause
deny.
I talked a little bit with some of the folks in Conference of Urban Counties to ask them kind of what they were doing or how. El Paso, for example, just either last session or the session before last, had a bill passed that gave them the authority to set the tax rate and approve the budget. And then Williamson County had indicated that as long as the entire emergency service district was contained within the county and didn't bleed over county lines, then the court appoints the representatives. If it bleeds over to other areas outside of the county, then they were under the impression that state law required that those folks be elected. So I was simply trying to get a handle or put this in, and that's when they mentioned that in many places, the Commissioner's Court does not set the tax rate or approve the budget, and that when El Paso said that when we proposed this, initially we proposed it as a bill for everybody, and a lot of the other emergency service districts around the state kind of got up in arms about it, and so they bracketed the bill to El Paso.
They're not all the same.
Okay, so you feel like that we've had legislation previously that allowed us and gave us that authority?
No, there is legislation. If we get this approved, added on to which law is it, Sharon?
Yeah, we have it listed in,
I didn't bring my, anyway.
It's Chapter 775 of the Health and Safety Code.
So but you believe that in the past, we had already had a bill passed that gave us the authority to set tax rate and approve the budget?
Oh, yes.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the constitutional amendment that allows us to create an ESD in Tarrant County specifically says that the Commissioner's Court has the authority,
Okay.
No, we're not touching that.
Well, and that's what I wanted to be sure, because El Paso said they had to go back. So maybe when they were originally created, when that emergency service district was originally created, it didn't have that in there.
It could be an issue of one where that you have an emergency services district that falls within at least or more than one county. But ours is in
Sitting here
one.
thinking about this, and this may muddy the water a little bit, but let me ask the question anyway before it comes up. Renee, I think, don't y'all do an audit?
We did originally, but as of late, they actually hired an outside firm.
They hire it out?
Yes, they've been
So
doing
y'all
that.
are not associated with them?
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I just wanted to make sure that we might want to clean house and do it all.
Well, and that was my reason for bringing this up, because I wasn't sure, and if we're gonna put something in, let's just make sure we get everything cleaned up. So go back, you might wanna go back and look at that emergency service creation and make sure that we have that. But that's,
Well, I'm 99.9% sure that we're correct, and
okay.
Our DA has brought it to my attention, and she is exactly correct. It's not anything in the statute that allows us to do it now.
Okay.
Can I bring up something else? Renee says she does not review or have any authority
She
over,
does not do the audit anymore.
and she doesn't review it, and this is a budget that we have responsibility of?
You have a responsibility of passing the tax rate, setting the tax rate. What we do is we receive and file their budget in court.
It is
And
audited,
last-
but you
and
do make
last-
a point, Commissioner, that,
And last week, we did file with the courts the receive and file of their outside audit.
It may be a good idea to have the county auditor to lead a regular inspection and audit of the district.
Not to put more,
It's a good check and balance.
Conducting the audit, they're hiring an outside accounting firm to do an independent audit. If the court wishes to have some role in looking at the budget or the records, I want to make sure that, again, from the DA's office, that I have that authority.
because by the same token, you don't do anything
I don't do anything with the other, any.
with the hospital district.
I want to correct what I said. We're receiving and filing their outside audit today. It's on the agenda as a consent item under the administrator's section.
I think we're all on the same page, it sounds to me like. We just want to make sure that if we're going to send something down there, that we review, and if there's anything else we need to clean up, let's figure that out before we pass one set of legislation and then say, oops.
Do you have a motion?
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion at this time? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And Your Honor, just a comment, we pulled the constitutional article that dealt with our ESD this morning, and it's very specific that the Commissioner's Court has to approve that tax rate.
Okay, good. Ms. Tidwell.
Thank you, Sharon. And David.
We have two items we're asking the court to consider this morning. The first is approve the release of the approximately $169,974,000 of collateral as outlined in your communique, and sign the attached.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the other item is we're asking the court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 2 months ended November 30th, 2014.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Snyder.
I move approval of the claims recommended by the Risk Management Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Ms. Glenn.
She got the treatment I usually get. Good morning.
Yeah, you got more items.
I have 4 items, actually, for the court today, or 3. The first item is we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve the letter of agreement with Hay Group, Inc. to conduct our annual update to the Tarrant County Compensation Plan. The cost of this study will not exceed $48,500. Those funds are included in HR's budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are we specifically asking them to look at a particular category this year? Or?
We've not had our first meeting with them.
Okay.
So we typically, after the court approves the item, then we schedule our meeting with Paul, and then we discuss with him any items of concern, any items that the court would like for us to discuss with Paul. We can do it at that time.
Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve a double fill as well as a waiver for County Criminal Court Number 3. Judge McCoy's court coordinator is retiring at the end of this month with 400 vacation hours. So the judge is requesting a waiver of those 400 hours as well as a double fill for 2 weeks in the month of February so that his new court coordinator has an opportunity to be trained. So the cost of these 2 requests to the general fund will be approximately $11,500, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
We have just one item for your consideration this morning. It is a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-064, the sale of recycled paper. Our recommendation will be toward the high bidder, Federal International, at the rate of $47 per ton.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. I'd like to move for the approval of item 8J, 1 and 2. Am I 1A and B?
1A and B.
1A and B.
Second.
I stand corrected.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? I have a couple of appointments to the Historical Commission that are at-large appointments that I think Commissioner Johnson and I, these folks have submitted requests to be appointed. One is Kent Knudsen, replacing Kara Kenner, who has resigned, and then the other one is Stacy Ludiker, replacing Carla Rundell. And so those are the 2.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have 3 items for you this morning. The first item is the legislative update. We've included that. Mr. Mendez has included that in your court communication or in your material, and we stand ready to answer any questions that you may have. Just a comment, members of the court, we did ask, dealing with the issue that we talked about with the Emergency Services District, that bill has been drafted, and we are filing that bill. We had sent you all each a copy of it, along with the District Attorney's Office, and the District Attorney's Office made their comment to it, and so that bill is being put in the hopper this week.
Is bracketed?
Yes.
Good.
Who's filing?
I think Senator Hancock is filing it, and we're also going to ask Representative Guerin to file it in the House. If we don't have any comments on the legislative aspect, we can go to item number B, or item B. This is an update on facilities management construction projects. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court at this time.
I see him working on the courthouse over there this morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to update the Commissioners Court on several of the facility management construction projects. First, the 1895 Courthouse Site Improvement Project. The project is moving along nicely. The replacement irrigation lines for the east lawn have been installed, and they'll be hooked up to our new 45,000-gallon cistern, which is under the west lawn. We'll be using free spring water to irrigate our property, and we hope to save somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 annually in water costs. The new lower landing for the south entry was completed in November. Now, the upper steps, the granite steps of the south entry, were not part of this project. However, Brett Pereski, our building manager, had the south steps flame-edged, which removed the top smooth layer of the granite with a propane torch, and it increased the traction or coefficient of friction for folks as they go up and down the steps. Coefficient of friction, yes.
So when are we looking at
Can you spell
completion
that?
of that project?
Sorry?
when are we looking at completion of that project?
If you allow me to get to that, I've got a few more paragraphs, and I'll be able to answer that question.
Don't take him out of, I mean, don't take him out of order here. I mean,
Sequence.
Well, he took a breath.
He's using some mighty big words today, so
Yes.
we don't want to derail him here.
For the west entry, the concrete foundations have been completed for the basement landing and the first floor landing, and the concrete substrate has been completed for the steps. The 4 new polished granite columns have been installed, the new porch canopy, structural steels installed, and have been grouted back into the building. The granite cornice and the balustrade is being installed on that upper canopy level, as well as the granite for the stair balustrades.
And we're not going to have to paint that granite at all.
No, we are not. It's the real
So
stuff.
it's going to really match, much better than the metal.
That's correct.
Got up on
It
the-
matches great, and I'm going to get to that too. The contractual completion date for Scott Tucker Construction Company is March 6th. However, we're going to need a couple of extra months to complete the project because all of the granite pieces, the 308 granite pieces we bought in 2007, don't actually fit together all as we had hoped. Back in 2007, we hired Cold Springs Granite Company out of Marble Falls, Texas, who happens to own the only outcropping of granite on this side of the universe that matches our 120-year-old courthouse. They came up here and took measurements using a laser scanner, and they developed a setting plan that dimensions and lays out the stones for this reconstruction project. I look back on it now. Back in 2007, we essentially asked Cold Springs Granite Company to come up here and provide us with replacement stones for the west entry that has been gone for over 60 years. There was no as-built drawings for the 1895 courthouse available. There was nothing there to measure, so they measured the next best thing. It was the east entry. Now, the 308 stones that we bought back in 2007 are perfect replacement stones for the east entry. However, the east entry is not the same as the west entry. We found out the east entry is 5.5 inches wider than the west entry. The east entry is 2.5 inches shorter from the basement landing to the first floor landing. And to top that off, the west entry, actually at 37 feet in the air at the porch level, leans into the east 2 to 3 inches. The project team has worked well together to work through these granite sizing issues. I'd like to thank Cold Springs Granite Company for being a team player. They've provided 89 replacement pieces of granite at no charge. At one point last year, they worked 24/7 shifts to quarry, cut, chip, and deliver these stones to us. Now, also, the new ones. Now, also, TST Construction Company out of Dallas, Texas, is the masonry subcontractor. They've done a great job on reworking some of the other stones. We had to rework about a third of the stones. Now, I'd especially like to thank Oscar Garcia and his crew for their hard work. Oscar is the lead stonemason for this project. Oscar and his crew have been providing the county what I believe to be quality, old-world craftsmanship type work. They've done a great job for us. I expect this job to complete in May or June. Now, there will be additional cost for the time delay, probably from the contractor and from the architect. However, I do believe, and it will be, we'll be able to handle any of those additional costs within the budget the county commissioners approved for this year.
So it sounds to me like we've got a bunch of extra stone.
Commissioner, they took back anything that didn't fit.
They did.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, we did find some stones as we were digging down into to dig out around that west elevation. We did find a few blocks left over from the 50s demolition, but all the other stuff was cut up and hauled off, but we did find a couple of stones. Moving on to the Tom Vander Griff Civil Courts building project. The project is just about to wrap up. Yates Construction is running a little behind on securing a temporary certificate of occupancy for the project from the City of Fort Worth. That temporary certificate of occupancy will allow us to load the building full of furniture. Now, I believe they'll have that this week or next week. We do have an opportunity with the HVAC system that pressurizes the stairwells and the elevator shafts. It doesn't seem to be getting where it needs to get. And so we're installing some motors, redoing some ductwork, and we hope to have that wrapped up soon. But that won't hold us up from installing the furniture in the building. I've met with Judge David Evans. He represents the civil judges for this project, and I met with Tom Wilder to work out a preferred opening date for first day of business for this building. Now, my plan is to be back in front of Commissioners Court in a few weeks to discuss and get permission from you to open on a specific date, probably in May or June of this year. But I won't have a recommendation for an exact date until I see the final and full certificate of occupancy from the city of Fort Worth after all this work is done. But I would hope to be back up here in a few weeks.
Are they working on the punch list now, or are we going to do that after occupancy?
Commissioner, they are working. They've punched some of the upper floors. They haven't punched the first floor. It's one of the last floors they were working on, and outside they haven't punched it as well. The courtrooms are punched, and they're beautiful. Lastly, GK asked me to update you on the building renovation for the new tenant in Building 2400, the Resource Connection. DARS, which is the State of Texas Department of Assistive and Rehabilitation Services, is the new tenant, and their first day of business in there was January the 5th. Tarrant County provided them with a full interior finish out. We also replaced the fire alarm system in the building. We also insulated the roof deck, insulated the exterior walls, and we improved the accessibility to the building. The budget I provided to Commissioners Court back in January of 2014 when we engaged the architect for this project, I provided the court with a budget of $1,154,000. The project came in at $1,014,000, so we're just a little under budget. And that's all I have this morning.
So you didn't talk about the paint on that balustrade across it. You told me you were going to talk about that later.
Well, that's Jim Duff, the warranty problem.
Okay, I understand that.
We're going to have to do something. I just don't know what we're going to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
The Southwest Sub Courthouse suffered some major damage yesterday.
I saw the pictures.
That's the third attack on that building in a 2-year period of time. I have asked GK, and he has agreed, to engage a security consultant to look at the perimeter of that building so that we can harden that building. Meanwhile, we are living in a state of extreme discomfort. Could you bring us up to date, as far as you know at this point, on what the processes will be to bring that building back and how long it's going to take?
Yes, Commissioner. We did have an attempted ATM theft in the building over the weekend, and it severely damaged some of the interior finishes and walls and furniture, and took out one of our storefronts. And
2 of our storefronts.
And they ran over some of the bollards, outside bollards we installed last time. Now, Mike Amador and staff are working on, and the purchasing department are working on adding additional bollards to the building around those critical areas. The ones that we added last time, we apparently didn't add enough.
No.
Now, as far as a storefront system, Commissioner, we took us several weeks to get to order and install the storefront that matches the building. We want one that looks like it belongs there. And so it will take several weeks to do that. It took that last time. And I would think it'll be at least 2 or 3 weeks before you see anything as far as aluminum products show up on the building. We've done a temporary installation. We've got it secured with our card reader access system. So it's just as secure as it was. The burglar alarm system is functional on those new doors, the temporary doors, and it should be good to go. Now, a couple of years ago, we did engage a person from the National Institute of Crime Prevention to come look at the building and make some recommendations, walked it through with me, and I took down some notes on what we should do, and those things were add glass breakage sensors on the exterior. We've Of course, added the bollards, we added boulders, and did some other things like that at some of the other courthouses as well. It looks like we apparently didn't do enough. I have watched in the past when we were having a spat of these ATM theft attempts. I went on YouTube and Googled how to steal an ATM, and I spent about an hour or so looking at that, and I found out adding cameras won't deter them because I was watching them. I was watching them do it. Adding bollards didn't seem to stop many people. It didn't stop this guy a couple of days ago. We've got burglar alarm systems. It's very functional. That's what helped us.
David, I want to ask you to, when you comment on these things, as it relates to security items that we may or may not have and what we're intending to put in, we can create a different form for that.
Sure, I understand. But I do know this, you know, it seems like we've done just about everything I know to do, and I think getting a security consultant, another security consultant, is probably a pretty good idea. Just another set of eyes to look at it. But as far as getting a system back in operation, it's going to be several weeks.
If this thief tried the same tactic with the southeast courthouse, would he be successful?
Let's not, once again, if I might ask you all, we can actually take something of this into closed session. Okay. Because it's a security issue. I would prefer we not discuss it in open session.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Members of the court, we can go to item C. This is an update on the juvenile justice system of Texas. Mr. Turner is here to address the court.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. Over the past several years, there's been quite a few changes in the juvenile system, and particularly there was a report that was released just last Thursday that has received some media attention and as well involved the Council of State Governments and Dr. Tony Fabello, who was here just a few weeks ago talking about some research that's going on with the adult system. I've brought several things that I can hand out to you as we go here that are reflective of some of the work that's going on, that's been going on again for the past several years. And so I just wanted to provide you a brief overview and update of some of that work. Back in 2007, a great deal of work took place because of reported abuses in state-operated facilities, at that point in time operated by the Texas Youth Commission. Legislative actions were taken to reduce the number of young people in the state-operated facilities, and funding was increased for the local probation departments. Then between 2009 and 2011, further legislative action took place to increase funding for local juvenile departments and to further reduce commitments into those state-operated facilities. And then the two state agencies that had historically been a part of the system were combined into the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. As a result of some of that activity, back in 2012, legislative leadership and leadership of the state agency requested that the Council of State Governments conduct a massive research review and determine what the impact of the reforms that had taken place up to that time. And then again in 2013, increased funding was provided for the local departments, and particular funding was provided for mental health and early intervention and prevention services. At the same time those reforms were going on across the state, and particularly with the state correctional system, referrals to the juvenile justice system began to decline nationally. Between 2007 and 2012, referrals to the system here in the state of Texas declined by 32%. There's a 35% decrease in dispositions to probation across the state, and actually a 65% decrease in the number of youth who were committed to the state's custody. The state had operated in 2007 13 state correctional facilities. Today they operate 5. Between 2009 and 2014, our referrals here in Tarrant County declined approximately 33%. With our dispositions to probation declining 39%, and our commitments to the state of Texas was reduced by 50%. So given all that nature, or that information, and the nature of what was taking place across the state, and again taken across nationwide, as I mentioned, the Council of State Governments got involved in a major research study to look at policy changes in the reforms here in the state of Texas, with implications, of course, nationally. They released their report called Closer to Home, an analysis of the state's juvenile justice system and the impact that state and local applications have had on the system. In the report, I just want to highlight a couple of things, and then the information I provided for you is the executive summary of the report, and there's also certainly on their website the opportunity to receive to review the entire report. Rearrest rates for youth under probation supervision and youth release from the state-run facilities was the key issue that the legislative leadership as well as the state leadership wanted to look at. And just in a quick summary, I just want to say to you that it's very important to understand that this was a very small subset of all the young people that are served across the state of Texas. This was a subset of approximately 57,000 youth who were eligible for commitment to the state of Texas. Some were not placed in the state of Texas by the juvenile courts, and of course some were. But they attempted to do an apples-to-apples comparison and looked particularly at just simply rearrest rates. The information from the research clearly shows that rearrest rates for young people who were served at the local county level are better, if not much better, than the results of those young people who were placed in the state's custody. From both the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year rates in looking at that population. Of course, the important part that what the legislative leadership was trying to look at was not just outcomes, but also cost and the benefit of making the changes that have been made since 2007. So that was one of the more global parts of the state that they wanted to look at. Another part that they really wanted to look at were rearrest rates at the local county level. What was taking place at local counties? And they were able to, through a multivariate analysis, I had to learn a lot about what multivariate analysis was, to look at
Mr. Phillips
counties.
will help you with those big words.
That's right, exactly. Dr. Fabello made my brain shake a little bit as we went through this. But rather than trying to compare county to county, because there are so many different variables between counties, they tried to come up with what they determined to be an expected rearrest rate based on numerous factors, numerous issues that have to do with expectations or projections of young people being involved in the juvenile system and actually even in the correctional system. Things that they looked at had to do with educational status, the financial status of the county, kids who lived in single-parent homes, their overall living arrangements, variable factors that research has shown over the years that has an impact on young people and as well as adults becoming involved with the juvenile and criminal justice systems. So there was an expected arrest rate established for 30 counties. From those 30 counties, they took a much deeper dive into 8 counties, which included Tarrant County, along with 7 others that represented large, urban, medium-sized counties and small counties. And so that is one of the things that we have begun to take a good hard look at as well. And again, I would point out that it doesn't mean that one county is worse than another. It doesn't mean one is doing a worse job than the others. It just simply means that they're looking at how do we do compared to our own expected rates of recidivism. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but we were found to be higher than expected. Our recidivism rates were higher than expected, and so certainly we are taking a much deeper dive and looking at the data as we try to consider what those issues are that may be impacting that. For example, we've obtained data from and through the Texas Juvenile Justice Department on every one of our referrals since 2009. Looking back now 6 years to really look and take a look at a complete, thorough analysis of what our system is doing. And so for an example, we've just begun some very initial work. Our data shows that all youth referred to Tarrant County, their reoffense rates after 1 year have been trending down since 2009. In 2009, our reoffense rates were 35.6%, down in 2013 to just under 30%. So we're seeing that downward trend is, of course, what we're looking for. We've also been diverting a lot more kids than many of our partners across the state of Texas. And actually, our diverted youth had the lowest reoffense rate at just under 20%. National research, both this research study as well as previous research, has clearly indicated that keeping young people out of the juvenile system and connecting them with proper resources and services is the best way to have more long-term impact. And certainly we have been taking that approach, and I believe our data is going to continue to reflect that. We have placed a significantly lower number of youth in secure and non-secure post-adjudication facilities, while this number has actually increased across the state of Texas. We do not operate a post-adjudication facility, a decision that was made years ago, and certainly lowers our overall cost as compared to some of the other urban counties across the state of Texas. And as I noted before, the juvenile court has committed 50% fewer youth to the state's custody over the past 5 years. I want to just highlight just a little bit because I want to make sure people understand when we talk about diversion, what does that really mean? Our department has diverted youth from the system at a higher rate, 35% of our referrals, compared to the statewide average of about 22%. 53% of all of our referrals assessed as low risk have been handled in a legal process called supervisory caution, and we divert that case. That was our numbers in 2014. 91% of our diversions in 2014 were low risk. 73% of the youth assessed as low risk we handled through that supervisory caution process, or we put them on deferred prosecution probation, which is the lowest level of intervention. And again, the research clearly reflects that if we work with low-risk kids to keep them back into the community versus pressing them into the structured system, that outcomes are going to be much better. Diverted does not mean no services. Diverted means that we have youth involved in a short-term intervention. They possibly pay restitution. They possibly do community service. They participate in victim mediation. They're linked with the community-based service instead of being placed again on a formal probation process, which is much more costly in the long run. I'd also want to point out that it appears, and we're still looking at the data to try to confirm this, that because we divert a higher number of low-risk youth, as I've said, has been encouraged by research, the percent of youth we place on formal probation at low risk is much lower than our counterparts across the state of Texas. For example, the percent of referrals for felony offenses in Dallas County was 20% of their was 20%, but their dispositions to either DPP or deferred prosecution probation or probation supervision was actually 69%. Harris County referrals for felony offenses was 27%, but yet they put 78% of their kids on a formal probation status. Tarrant County, our referrals for felony offenses was 27%, but we only placed 38% of our kids on a formal probationary status. Again, therefore, really trying to focus our work on the kids who are the most needy and how we deal with that. So I want to just make sure you were aware of that as the report becomes more and more available throughout the community. And want to make sure that that was a very clear understanding even for our community to know that just because we are diverting kids, we are providing services, but also in the long run, it's a much smarter, much more economical way to do this business. The only couple of two or three things I wanted to also point out. You mentioned, or as you recognized Ernie Lopez just a little while ago, we have appreciated certainly your support in our juvenile system about the case management system that has evolved over the past 10 or 11 years. The implementation of a recognized risk and need assessment, which we actually implemented in Tarrant County before other counties across the state did so back in 2009, and we've been enhancing the validity and the reliability of that tool since that time. Along with our JCMS system, we have a wealth of data so that we can really now take a very hard look at what our systems look like. We've embraced the research study completed by the Council of State Governments, and we are certainly looking forward to continuing to review. The other document that I quickly want to point out is a document that was also developed by the Council of State Governments called Core Principles for Reducing Recidivism and Improving Outcomes for Young People in the Juvenile System. There are 4 key principles, and the documents that I presented to you or provided for you reflects our assessment of where we are doing well with those core principles and things we need to work on. We have been working for the past 60, 90 days. This core principles document came out early last fall, and so we started taking that document even prior to the research study that was completed to really take a very hard look at our systems and what do we do well, where do we need to improve. The first principle talks about supervision being based on the results of a validated risk and needs assessment. We started doing that in 2009. We need to continue to validate that, revalidate that, train our staff on the best use of that process so that we again make the best decisions and provide services for low-risk kids, push low-risk kids more into community service, focus our energies on medium and high-risk kids. The second principle talks about effectively implementing programs and services that clearly demonstrate reducing recidivism, improving outcomes, and it calls for an evaluation of performance. And again, this research by Dr. Fabello has been the Texas's first shot at actually doing this, and so we will continue to use that data to improve our systems. The third principle talks about coordinating the approach across systems to address kids' needs. We work very closely. The county has supported us in our relationship with MHMR. We have an MHMR person in our building. We have a child welfare person in our building. And so we have been working diligently to approach our system issues across departments as well as with our community partners, our courts, the district attorney's office, and all those involved as stakeholders in our system. And then finally, tailoring system policies and programs to reflect distinct developmental needs of adolescents. Helping and being a part of a family unit that really engages the whole family because that's a part of the young person's development. Working in the area of disproportionate minority contact, working with young people of color to ensure that those needs and issues are met effectively and properly. So we have been doing some of the things. We certainly embrace the work that the study has reflected on. We've embraced the core principles that we need to be doing and addressing and enhancing as we go forward. As we match kids with programs and services, as we further enhance our assessment tool to ensure that we're making the best decision for those kids. And we certainly look forward to working with our community partners over the next years to come to further improve our systems. Again, I will stop there. I'll be happy to share any additional information. The full reports, again, are available on the Council of State Government's website, and we'll be happy to provide additional information as needed.
Thank you, Randy.
I just have a comment.
Yes, sir.
And that is that I had the opportunity to meet with the MacArthur Foundation about 2 weeks ago about these juvenile justice issues. And I want to congratulate you because you are right on the cutting edge of where the research says we should be going in terms of reducing recidivism and improving outcomes for our children. We made a conscious decision as a court when the whole kerfuffle about the state correctional facilities for juveniles came out 10 or so years ago.
Yes, sir.
We made it our priority to serve as many of our kids in this county as we possibly could, and to make referrals to those outside institutions only for the most egregious and incorrigible among the youth population. But you have taken it so much further than that. it helps to reduce recidivism if you never place a kid in the juvenile justice system in the first place.
Absolutely.
Diversion should be the preferred option. Now, of course, that depends upon your assessment instrument and how you analyze the risk factors associated with each individual kid. And that brings me to my request for you. I'd like to look at that assessment instrument and your system so that I can understand how you're making the decisions on diversion that you're making. But I congratulate you for doing that.
Thank you. And one last thing, if I may, Judge. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you, but I couldn't be here if it wasn't for significant leadership within our department. I think many of you have already met Benny Medlin. Benny's been with us for several years, but I don't believe some of you have met our newest assistant director, Linda Brooke, who is with us there next to Benny. We stole Linda actually from the state of Texas. She'd been the chief of staff at the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, and actually right before she came here, she was serving as interim director for the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. So she has brought a tremendous wealth. And we hired her anyway. We got her out of the mess and out of the fray and brought her to where we try to do things right when it comes to juvenile justice. So she has been a key, taking key leadership in helping us develop some of this material that you've seen today. And certainly between she and Benny and I and our other senior team members, we are committed to providing the best services we possibly can for kids and families here in Tarrant County. So, again, thank you very much. We appreciate your time this morning.
Linda, welcome aboard. Appreciate having you here. And again, y'all are doing a great job. So thank you, Randy, for your comments.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Then we will proceed from our open session to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. And nobody cared. Having returned from our closed session, we will now address the following matters.
Your Honor, members of the court, we go to the administrator's section, item A1. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an agreement between the county and MHMR of Tarrant County as it relates to the employment of a IDD director needs. IDD.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And then we have one additional item. It's item 2. We're asking the court to approve a change to the table of organization to add one new mental health, mental retardation, intellectual and development disabilities needs director position to the county administrator's TO.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
There being no further business, we are adjourned.